What's up guys, we are back for another video, but this is not going to be a review. So I've been doing a lot of Masters of the Universe stuff lately, and I have been getting back into looking at some older MOTUC Classics figures, and it's made me take a step back and think about what figures are my favorite. Not necessarily because I think they're objectively good figures or that they're the best in terms of articulation or sculpt, or just what are my favorites, all of my biases included. So we're going to take just a quick moment. I'm going to run through my top 10 figures for MOTUC Classics, and I'm going to preface this by saying that it's just figures. So any figure counts, not necessarily a release. So like the Fighting Foemen, for example, they're not on the list, but one individual figure could count. Or, you know, the Man-at-Arms that came with Battle Ram could count. But I'm not going to count any kind of vehicles. I'm not going to count Castle Grayskull. I'm not going to count any of the beasts or anything like that. So this is just straight up figures, and we're going to get things started with number 10. And that would be Light Hope. And this one might come as a bit of a surprise, but I objectively think this figure is pretty fantastic, and subjectively think it is one of the coolest looking figures in the line. You've got all that translucent plastic. You've got what is essentially a rainbow in the show that is given form in Classics. I think he fits really well into Classics in general, and he's just a cool looking figure. How could you not want a really audaciously sculpted translucent figure with a massive staff in your collection? I mean, he just looks so cool, and I've always been a big fan of this particular figure. Number 9 might be a bit of surprise unless you've heard me talk about this in other videos, but that would be my love for the New Adventures cartoon and subsequently the toy line, because I was very much at the age to play with those toys when that show was around, and that's kind of carried over to today. So I really like the New Adventures figures in Classics, and I really love New Adventures or Galactic Protector He-Man. I think this is a fantastic figure. I think it just looks very cool. I really like the New Adventures aesthetic. I like the sword. I really prefer him without the chest armor, so I always display him without that. But yeah, he's a fantastic figure for me. He-Man is of course always going to appear on a top 10 list for me, but this one is just special because of what he is and the memories I have of that show. Number 8, we are switching over to the villains side. There are more villains than heroes on this list, but the list is pretty split almost down the middle. And this one is just a weird one. It's a cool villain. He's got an interesting action feature in the vintage line. Of course, we don't have that here, but that would be Mosquitor. So he's a mosquito man. There's really not a whole lot for me to say. I love wacky designs when it comes to figures and to characters, and I think they translated this one just expertly. He looks so good. It's one of the best figures in the line for me by far. So there was a no-brainer here. He was absolutely going to appear on my list. Number 7, another villain, and this might be one of the most objectively fantastic villains in the line. He's not my favorite villain, but he definitely deserves a spot on my list because I'm so fond of the figure, and that would be Trapjaw. He is among the most gruesome figures in this line. I love everything about what they did with the nastiness inside of his mouth, all the accessories that we got, and he, for such an early figure, he's just so good. I mean, he's a quintessential villain. You kind of need to have him anyway, but he is just a step above in a lot of ways for this particular line. I think he looks fantastic in his classicized version, and they really knocked it out of the park with this one. Number 6, we are going back to a figure character that I have a lot of fond memories of from when I was a kid playing with the vintage toy, and that would be Ratlore. Now, we don't have his action feature in Classics, but they did do the best they could by giving us the extra neck pieces, so I'm always happy for that kind of stuff that they include in the line. But in general, I think he is a fantastic figure. I love the Snake Men. I love all of the Snake Men stuff in He-Man, in MOTU, but Ratlore is generally my favorite on most days, and he is just one that I have a lot of fond memories of as far as the vintage line goes, and I think they translated everything really well into Classics. Throw on that 2000X chest armor and you've got an even cooler figure, so yeah, he's a no-brainer for me. Number 5 takes us back to the heroes side of the house with my favorite female figure in the line, and if you saw my recent Sorceress review, you know that that's not Sorceress, but it's Teela, and I think that I'm not alone in that. She is objectively a fantastic figure. If you're talking Mattel, if you're talking the Super 7 Ultimates, there's just a lot going on. We've got a lot of different ways to display her. She looks fantastic. I think she has one of the best face and head sculpts in the line for women in general, and I mean, it's Teela. You can't really go wrong with her, and I think that this is another example of a figure that is kind of a cut above a lot of the other stuff in MOTUC Classics. Number 4, we have got one. He may not be the most well-known figure in the line. That would be He-Man. Oh wait, he is well-known. He is the man himself. He's not my favorite figure. He is definitely always going to appear on the list. Of course, we have 2 He-Men in this list. But the main He-Man figure, I mean, he kind of is the main deal when it comes to MOTU Classics. You can't have MOTU without He-Man, and I think that this is a fantastic figure just all around. I do, however, prefer to use the vintage style head on my figure. I think that really changes the whole look and feel of the character of the figure, and it's just such a well done head. So I usually display that, but in general, everything about He-Man is fantastic. You can't have a He-Man MOTU collection without the man himself, so he of course deserves a spot on this list. Number 3, we're switching back over to the villain side of things, and we're not coming back. We're staying with villains the entire way through now, and we have got one of, if not the spookiest villains in the line, and that would of course be Scareglow. I think this is definitely one of the more popular characters in all of MOTU, just because of the fact that he's a glow-in-the-dark skeleton. But even beyond that, he's a fantastic looking figure. He has a translucent cape, he's got a glowing weapon, he has the key to Castle Grayskull. You really can't go wrong with this guy, and the aftermarket prices definitely agree with me on that. So he was no-brainer for being near the top of my list. Number 2 is the antithesis of He-Man. We are obviously talking about Skeletor, old Boneface himself. And in general, I mean, it's Skeletor. There's a lot of different ways to display this figure with all the different accessories we've gotten, all the different versions that we've gotten, but I always come back to just the regular Skeletor, not the one with the Alcala head, just the regular standard Skeletor. Maybe throw the Keldor cape on him if you want to get crazy, but I think he's just a fantastic figure. He is one of my favorite characters in general in all of MOTU, and that's pretty common, I think. But the Classics figure is a classic for me. It's just one that's stuck with me for all these years now. He's a great example of why this line is so good, and it's Skeletor. I don't really think I need to say too much more. Number 1 might not come as a surprise to you if you've paid attention to some other videos where I have talked about this particular figure. The character is in my intro. I have said time and time again that he is my favorite vintage figure, he is my favorite Classics figure, he is my favorite MOTU character in general, bar none, so my bias is heavily weighed on this particular one, and that would be the stinkiest, the smelliest figure in the line, Stinkor. This figure, this character, is the one that I have the most fond memories of when it comes to Masters of the Universe. That character and that figure from the vintage line has stuck with me all through these years. I have my original figure and he is beat all to hell, but I will never let him go. He just looks so cool. He's a smelly skunk figure. There's just something so weird about it that makes me love this particular character. The smell alone is enough to make me think of my childhood, which is really a big factor for me. But I think the Classics figure on its own is a solid figure, not to mention the fact that we got the extra head with him, and it's just a great package all around. You know, he may not be your favorite character, but he is definitely mine for a lot of reasons, not just because he's a good figure, but because I have a lot of memories tied up in Stinkor. So that's my list. Let me know what you guys think. Were there any real surprises on there? There probably were a couple. What is your list? What's your favorite MOTU Classics figure? What's your favorite MOTU character? Let me know. I would love to have a little discussion on what you think about my list versus yours. So yeah, that's going to do it, guys. I'll catch you later.